my gray hair. Bro, these are all the gray hairs that I got in 2021. It's like this whole side here is just patches and patches of gray hair, which I did not have before. But yeah, looking okay. I can't believe I have so much gray hairs. But yeah. Anyways, it's Tuesday, January 4th. I'm just doing a quick little vlog while I wait to pick up my kid from school. I've been starting up my job search for 2022 because it's just like, okay, I guess I should try to find a job at this point. But I do want to say that, like, my job searching eyes have just, like, changed. Like, there's just so little that I will tolerate in a workplace that, like, it makes it hard to, like, look for a job, because I just know that, like, I just can't take any more bullshit. You know?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I'm just so burnt out still from the last job that I had in terms of, like, the emotional output that was required. I just cannot go into another work environment where I'm being squeezed for every little bit of humanity that I have and being treated as though I have no value and mean nothing and can just be disposed of. It's just like, it's beyond troubling, because I feel like my experience at my former employer was not an isolated experience. I know that there are other people who felt similarly, other people who look like me, particularly black women, darker skinned black women. I know there are other people who look like me who had negative experiences based on, you know, who they are in the world, and who were treated poorly, and, you know, there was no accountability for the way we were treated in the workplace. My previous employer was pretty much the last straw in a string of just unsavory work relationships, where it was just like, damn, I just got squeezed for everything that I had. I was abused emotionally. I was abused financially, and I was pretty much just disposed of. I was made to dispose of myself. You know, the work environment was made so uncomfortable that I had no choice but to leave, because I was being continuously disrespected in multiple ways. I wanted to add a little bit of context here. When I say that I was being abused in multiple ways in the environment, I am referring to workplace bullying. I can say from my personal experience, workplace bullying isn't always very overt. It's not people saying rude things to you outright to your face, but it's things that people do behind the scenes to invalidate your experience. They tend to gang up on you. They tend to talk amongst themselves about you when you aren't around. They invalidate your work that you're doing so that it makes you look incompetent to the people who are in charge. Meanwhile, they are in your face telling you how great you are and how much you bring to the team, but really they're sabotaging you in the background. And you usually don't find out about the sabotage until you talk with other people, or until it becomes so aggressive through passive aggression that it can no longer be ignored. Having my skill set questioned constantly by people who weren't even in the same department as me, didn't even have an overview of the work that I was doing, so it led me to believe that the people that should have been vouching for the work that I did not do that. Either were taking credit for the work that I was doing, so the work that I was producing was being passed off as someone else's work, so it made me look like I wasn't doing shit. And two, I was being gaslit in situations where I was made uncomfortable, and I was being told that I was the only person who was noticing this pattern of discomfort amongst Black women in the workplace. I was being told that, you know, what would we do if we didn't have you here to notice these things? Especially since, like, you're like the only person who ever notices these things, you know? And being told that repeatedly was basically their way of telling me that, like, you know, none of this stuff is happening. You're basically just making these things up because nobody else is seeing this. So we don't have to take accountability for the way that, you know, you're interpreting things. And we're not going to do anything about it. You could just leave, you know.
And that last little blurb there, that was an actual direct quote from one of my immediate managers during my unofficial exit interview. I was actually told straightforwardly, verbatim, what would we do without someone like you here to notice these things? You're actually the only person who ever really notices these things. And when she told me that, it set off an alarm in my head that they were happy that I was seeing myself out because I was, quote unquote, the only person noticing these things. And without anybody else feeling empowered to say something about those things, it absolved them from accountability. So that way, once you get the person who is able to call you out on these problems, these problematic behaviors, you're kind of in the clear. And that was a big red flag to me, and was definitely a sign to me that, you know, I was making the best decision for myself.
In addition to being saddled with the constant negativity of other people and being bullied into submission, I feel that I was bullied in the workplace. And it's something that, as a Black woman, I've experienced in multiple workplaces where I was the only Black woman, the only monoracial, unambiguous Black woman. Like, that's just my reality that I've had to deal with. And, you know, it just gotten to a point where it's like, I don't want to fucking deal with this shit anymore. I want to be able to work somewhere where I feel valued, work somewhere where I can voice disturbing facts to leadership and have someone do something about it, and work in an environment where I'm not treated like an outsider all the time, not treated like this special fucking unicorn that only is capable of, you know, doing things when people ask them to do it and having no autonomy over my own experience. So I realized that that was just like such a negative place to be in, and I don't want to go back there. So that's how I'm feeling these days. It just sucks, and I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Okay, guys, I actually ended up cutting out the video because, believe it or not, it was just me talking about my hair. But to sum up this video, I really wanted to drive home the point that workplace harassment is something that is so insidious that it can be invisible. At times, you're made to feel like you may be overreacting, when in reality, you're just conditioning yourself to being gaslit. I, for one, was being harassed by multiple people at work in ways that at first it just felt like it was petty grievances from me. But once I started to realize that a lot of the perpetrators, they were, you know, in positions of power that I would never have in the workplace, and the ways that they were making me uncomfortable started to become overt because they were wielding their power over me. And that's something that I think a lot of people ignore in terms of like the power dynamics in the workplace, especially when it comes to women of color. But I'm not going to just sugarcoat it at women of color. I want to say that this affects Black women in particular, because unlike white women and other white passing women who are closer to white than they are Black, we don't have the privilege of our gender saving us, you know? There was often times where I would literally just be sitting at my desk with my earphones in quietly, wearing a mask, and people would come up to me and say, "Are you okay? You seem like you're upset."
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I would literally be sitting there doing my job, and people would take time out of their day to speculate on my mood. As a black woman, I think that's one of the most infuriating things in the workplace is when you have to wear this mask and perform for everyone all day for people just to leave you alone and allow you the space to actually do your work. I don't think people really understand how troubling that is and how much anxiety that causes us in the workplace. So for me, the best decision was to move on and put myself in a position where I could create new positive opportunities for work. And that meant detaching from environments that just didn't have it in mind to serve me. So all in all, I hope this video just gives some clarity on why black women tend to leave quote unquote good jobs. A lot of the times, it's not the actual work that's driving us out of the workplace, but it's the micro and macro aggressions that come from our colleagues that drive us out of jobs that we actually love. I want to say that my previous job was in an industry that I had been wanting to work in for a really long time, and it was actually closely tied to my background and what I actually went to school for. So it's really disappointing that I wasn't able to continue doing good work with that team because of the way that I was being treated behind the scenes. And you know, the people who worked there, who were in charge, they're going to have their own versions of this story. But all I can say is that I, for one, have learned to value myself, especially when I'm not being valued by others. And the way that I do that is preserving my peace and putting myself in a positive environment. When I came to my job, the one thing that I wanted to do was leave it better than I found it. And unfortunately, the powers that be would not allow me any actual power to do that. So hopefully, with my next journey, I will be able to continue to bring positive vibes, inspire the people, and, make it better than how it was when I came in.